Hi there, this is Bonnie, and I'll be showing you how to finish the backs of your hoop art. There are many ways to clean up the backs. Some of the most common ways to handle the excess fabric are to simply trim the extra fabric an inch or so beyond the hoop, sew a running stitch around the outside, and cinch it to pull all the extra fabric to the back. Number 1 shows an example of that. You can then neaten up the back by gluing a piece of felt or fabric to cover the embroidery fabric. Or you can stitch the felt or fabric backing using a blanket stitch or a whip stitch. Number 2 shows the glued method. Number 3 is blanket stitched. And number 4 is whip stitched. But our favorite method is shown in number 5. I'm going to demonstrate that today. You're going to need some kind of sturdy backing material. So cardboard or foam core board, those would be great options. Generally speaking though, for something smaller like a 4-inch hoop, which I'm using today to demonstrate with, you can get away with something thinner like a heavyweight cardstock or chipboard like this. So what you're going to do is remove your embroidery from the hoop, because you're going to need access to the inner hoop. So I'll take that out and set that aside. If you're going to choose to add a felt circle to finish the back, like I did on this cardboard version, then you're going to want to trace the felt using the inside of your inner hoop as a guide. So you would just trace around it. Again, you're tracing the inside of the hoop, not the outside. You want it to fit just inside the inner hoop. And then you would cut that out, so you could use your fabric shears for that. Next, I'm going to glue this, and I'll glue it with the side that had the ink on it, that side down. And I'm just going to use a regular quick dry tacky glue. Just put a little bead of glue around the outside. And I'm not going right to the edge because when I press it down, it's going to spread out a little bit. So I'll go ahead and place that down onto my chipboard and just smooth it out. When the glue dries, you won't see it, so don't worry about that. It ends up like this once it's dry. If you need to go closer to the edges, you can, but you don't really have to. If it bothers you, you can certainly add a little bit of glue to the edge to tack that down. So then you use some paper scissors, and you can cut this circle out using the felt as a guide. Okay, so this is going to be your backing. Now, if your embroidery is on light colored fabric and you only did it on one layer of white, sometimes when you use this method, the extra fabric that gets pressed up behind the stitching will create a sort of shadow behind it. So to help with that, what we do is trace another piece of fabric, or in this case, I'm doing another felt circle. Trace the inner hoop on that and cut that one out as well. So you'd be cutting 2 felt circles. But choose a color that's more neutral and that won't affect what the fabric looks like on the other side. Put your fabric back into the hoop, making sure you're happy with the position of everything. Tighten the hardware all the way. Make sure the fabric's nice and taut inside, centered, and level. My fabric's been pre-cut, but if your fabric hasn't, then you're going to want to go ahead and take some fabric shears and trim around it, leaving about 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch of fabric extra beyond the hoop itself. At this point, you can insert that extra piece of fabric behind your stitches, just loosely. You don't have to jam it in there, just kind of place it on top. And then take your hands and just start to guide the fabric in towards the center of the hoop. You can use your fingers and your nails to press the fabric and crease it so that it starts to sit more towards the center of the hoop. This will just make the next step a little bit easier. Okay, you press everything in towards the center. Then you take your chipboard or your cardboard. I'll show you with the chipboard. You just kind of go over the top, on top of the fabric, and then you start to tuck the fabric in underneath the felt circle. Then gently press so that that circle sits just suspended inside the hoop. You want it to sit about 1/8 of an inch down, not pushed right up against the back of your embroidery fabric. So it's suspended within the inner hoop and it's holding all that extra fabric down inside. We love that this gives our hoop art a clean finish, and we also love that it's not permanent. You can pop the chipboard back out easily to get access to the fabric again if you want to add more stitching. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial. Happy stitching!